What is up, Bears fans? You are very welcome to the Chicago Bears Huddle podcast, guys, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. Do you know what? I stayed up, watched the game last night, stayed up till I think it was after midnight. Just gutted with the final score, 21-28. Proud of the second half. I thought the Bears played much better in the second half. I thought first half we were absolutely dire, just not good enough at all on both sides of the ball. Look, we're going to talk obviously a bit about the game, pick that apart a little bit. We're also going to talk about some of the issues, I think, coming out of this game, which the Bears need to address, obviously, going forward. 4 games to go. Obviously, playoff destiny still very much in our own hands. Win 4, and we get a playoff place. We've gone from first seed in the NFC down to 7th seed. I'm going to talk a little bit about the D-line and the struggles that's bringing. I think that is something that desperately needs to be rebuilt over the off-season, post this season. I think obviously the injuries as well have not helped the Bears in the slightest. Now look, yesterday's game, first half, I thought the Bears were diabolical. The offense struggled so badly, didn't establish the run early, tried to throw the ball way too much. Was it Caleb on his first 9 dropbacks, 5 pressures, was really under it. The offensive line struggled with the Packers pass rush. Look, let's get things inside. This is a good Packers team. They have a very good D. And they brought it last night, and they caused the Bears masses of trouble in that first half. Yes, CJ Gardner-Johnson got the 1 turnover of the game. A good interception of Jordan Love there. But I think one of the big issues out of that first half, and the whole game, was our lack of ability to bring any pressure to Jordan Love. And even when we did, it wasn't effective pressure, so to say. I think, was it not 12 blitzes? On those 12 blitzes, he was 9 of 12 on those blitzes, and even threw a TD on, I think, 1 or 2 occasions to his receivers. So, look, the blitz did not work in the slightest. We couldn't really get to Jordan Love at all. First half, I thought, like I said, way too pass heavy. I think we need to establish the run, get that run going. I think second half, once we established the run, it was more effective. The defense was more bend, don't break. I think the defense struggled yesterday. I really did. He came up with some good plays in the second half, certainly stopping the Packers and keeping the Packers D on the field. I think the possession stats in terms of minutes in possession in the second half, the Bears dominated that. Look, I think we're going to obviously have to address Caleb Williams. I thought Caleb was poor in the first half, inaccurate, really did struggle, couldn't cope with the pressure, was very much way too fast all the time, needed to slow it down a little bit. Second half, I thought he was a lot better. Look, I've heard a lot this morning. I've seen the Bagent baddies are out in force again today, saying that, Tyson Bagent would have won the Bears that game. I think that's a load of rubbish. Because Tyson Bagent doesn't make that throw to Olamide Zaccheaus in the end zone. Tyson Bagent doesn't make those throws rolling out of the pocket and throwing across his body or throwing deep. Tyson Bagent has not got that ability or that talent or that arm. So Bagent baddies, back in your box, guys, back in your box. Caleb Williams is the quarterback. He is the quarterback. Now, is Caleb Williams the finished article? Certainly not. Did Caleb Williams last night make some mistakes? Yes, of course he did. He's still a young lad, still learning the game. He's in effectively his rookie season after what last season was a bit of a waste of a year under Eberflus and Waldron. So, look, his arm talent is quite clearly there. Yes, there is his footwork, his escapability is outstanding. His ability to get away from people. Micah Parsons, 0 sacks last night. Yeah, Micah, stop running this, man. You know what? Micah Parsons has got a bigger mouth than his amount of talent. I thought, his ability to get away from people, to escape, to run with the ball was excellent last night. And some of his, plays outside of the pocket were fantastic. I think there's times when he could stay in the pocket for a little bit longer, be a bit calmer. I think he needs to sort his footwork out. I think he needs to get his timing right. And I think he needs to also get his accuracy improved. And I think third year will be make or break with Caleb Williams. Look, this is a work in progress. This is not a guy who you're going to come in from day one and he's going to be this outstanding quarterback from minute one. It takes time. Even some of the greats from the past took time to mature and obviously, become the top quarterbacks. Look, I think second half as well, once we got the running attack established, the offense looked a whole lot more fluid and a lot better. Kalmanungai, that guy is made of steel, man. Absolutely made of iron. That play where he smashes into the Packers player, I think was it McKinney or someone, smashes his helmet and then just gets back up and keeps on going. What a hero, guys. What a hero he is. I think, once that running attack was established, it was very good. Colston Loveland, I thought, was exceptional as well at times. Some great receptions in the second half. And look, yes, all the discussion comes down to that final play, that 4th and 1. I think, there were some good points I've heard this morning. One of the biggest points, I think, had we made that first down on that 3rd and 1, then this doesn't become an issue. This is a very different game, but we don't get that first down on the Manungai running play, and it all comes down to, was it Swift? I can't remember now. It was late. I was tired. We make that at the end, and I think it becomes a very different game. I also think they go for 2 if we get that touchdown at the end. Now, that throw, as Ben Johnson explained, it was the same route concepts as we ran against the Philadelphia Eagles that got Cole Kmet's touchdown. The ball was just badly underthrown. And yes, that's on Caleb. And Caleb will have to learn from that. I think it was badly underthrown. Had that been a bit deeper, a bit higher, a bit faster, it probably hits Kmet in the back of the end zone. For whatever reason, he didn't see DJ Moore, who was on that crosser, who was wide open. Look, I don't know what the issue is with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams. Only 3 targets last night, -4 yards. Obviously, Caleb and DJ don't have an understanding. I think, as Ben said, not having Remadunze was a loss. As much as we tried to play it down with the other targets, it was a loss because Remadunze is kind of a go-to guy for Caleb Williams, a guy who gets open, a guy who runs good routes. He's probably our wide receiver 1. So, yeah, that was a loss last night. There were so many points in that game in the second half that could have been game-changing moments. There was the Josh Jacobs 21-yard run where our 4 players seemed to all run into each other and then leave it to each other to tackle Josh Jacobs, and none of them bothered. That was just awful. I think that kind of builds into a wider issue with our Bears. And we're going to come on to that in a moment to do with the defensive line and its lack of ability to get at the passer. Let's have a little look at some from last night's game. Caleb Williams, his figures are not massively impressive. He was 0 of 5 at the start of the game. Take those 5 out and it's 19 of 30. Doesn't quite look so bad. 186 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, 1 sack. 1 sack's a bit of a surprise considering how many times the Packers got after Williams. I think a lot of it is down to his pace, and Rashawn Gary must be fed up of chasing Caleb Williams. I know Mike Parsons, ego boy, was pissed off post-game. They're not great figures. We do need to see a big improvement in Caleb in terms of his output yards-wise and passing-wise. And that's something Ben Johnson, Press Taylor, JT Barrett, Antoine Mandel, etc. are going to have to work on over the coming weeks and months. Rushing-wise, DeAndre Swift, 13 carries, 63 yards, 4.8 a carry. Kalmanungai, the man of steel, 14 carries, 57 yards, 4.1. Caleb, 4, 15, 3.8. DeAndre Swift and Kalmanungai second half, once they established the run, I thought looked exceptionally effective between the two of them. 120 yards rushing combined is pretty decent against a very good Packers D. Receptions-wise, let's have a look at some figures here. I thought Luther Burden stepped up very, very well last night. 4 of 67, 16.8 average, no TDs, but 6 targets. Cole Kmet, 2 for 42 on 3 targets. Colston Loveland, who I thought was excellent as well. 4 receptions on 29, 7.2 and a touchdown. Duvernay, 1 for 24. DeAndre Swift, 3 for 19. Almeida Zacchaeus, 2 for 7, including that fantastic touchdown catch. Durham Smythe, 1 for 2. Kalmanungai didn't get... got a reception but didn't get any yards. And DJ Moore, again, I don't get the lack of use of DJ Moore. Maybe I don't know, he just doesn't fit with the system. I don't get it. Defensively, it wasn't great. Obviously, I think losing Kyler Gordon pre-game was a big one. I think, had Dennis Allen had Kyler Gordon for the whole of that game, maybe it's a bit different. Maybe he uses Kyler and CJ Gardner-Johnson a little bit different. The two of the touchdowns that we gave up where we send everybody and nobody gets home, it leaves CJ Gardner-Johnson, for instance, one-on-one with Christian Watson, or Kevin Byard one-on-one with Christian Watson, and Jaquan Brisker blows his coverage. I think it was just a bad play from the Bears. Bad defensive play. I don't think anyone particularly stood out defensively. TJ Edwards was on a snap count. I thought the D-line was poor, really poor. It's a bit of a disappointment because, you've got, obviously, Montez Sweat on a lot of money. You've got Grady Jarrett, the veteran. You've got Gervin Dexter and Austin Booker, and none of them were particularly effective at all. Defensively, look, as well, Jalen Johnson. I don't think Jalen Johnson is at all fit. One tackle, one assisted tackle. That's it. He looked off it last night. I think there's a lot of players on that defense that are carrying injuries that are not fully at it, but we're being risked because it's what we've got. TJ Edwards, like I said, snap count. DeMarco Jackson played the majority of snaps. Nothing against DMAC, but Noah Sewell, obviously, he was only for one or two snaps, hardly in at all. He was clearly not fit as well. So I think there was a lot of risks taken with that D last night, and they weren't ready. And I think Dennis Allen had to kind of make the best of what he had. I mean, let's face it, he's probably been preparing all week to run this D with Kyler Gordon in there, but no Kyler Gordon. Once there's no Kyler Gordon, what do you do? What do you do? You've got to kind of change and adapt on the fly. And, that groin injury, again, you've got to raise a question. If he's getting injured in a warm-up, is he actually fit? Is he fully fit? Is he able to go? And that's the question you've got to raise. And I think he probably isn't fully fit at this moment in time. And maybe he should not have been used last night. Let's have a little look at some other things here. I'm going to raise the D-line. Look, I know Dioda Yingbo's out for the season and he won't play again for the Bears. I think he'll get cut at the end of the season or traded or whatever. He'll be gone. But you look at that D-line last night, and not just last night, but across the whole season, and they just have not been good enough. They haven't been good enough. They just have not been up to standard. They do not bring enough pressure. Their pass rush is not getting home. It's not putting the quarterback of the opposing team under enough pressure. We saw last night there was a lot of times Jordan Love had all day, all year, all century to wait in that pocket, pick his targets. Josh Jacobs as well, way too easily breaking through that D-line on a regular basis. That defensive line for me, Grady Jarrett, I think has been a massive disappointment since he's come in. Montez Sweat, certainly. I mean, yes, he got to get his sack last night, but, even his sack numbers for me are not equivalent of what we're paying for this guy. He's an okay pass rusher. He's not a great pass rusher. He's not certainly, going to win you championships. He's not in the same levels as a TJ, and I'm not talking Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons here, the elite of the elite. He's not even in like a Trey Hendrickson, Zach Allen kind of, bracket in terms of his talent, this season. Yes, like I said, his stats are a little bit better this season than they have been previously. I mean, he's on 8.5 sacks this year, which is better than he has been, 5.5 and 6. But he's still not bringing the heat on a regular enough basis for me. The interior defensive line to me doesn't look strong enough, whether it's Billings, Dexter, Jarrett, and Austin Booker perhaps is not doing what he needs to be doing on the other side. And there is very little options other than that. Obviously, Dominique Robinson didn't play last night. Daniel Hardy not really an option. I do worry about this defensive line, and I think the lack of pass rush, the lack of being able to bring that pressure is hurting this group. And I think if you look at the great teams that have won Super Bowls, and I'm like I said, I'm not saying for a minute here this morning that we should have been Super Bowl contenders this season, because I don't think we are Super Bowl contenders. I think we get to the playoffs probably. I think we perhaps perhaps one and done, or even perhaps two and done. I don't see us winning an NFC championship at this moment in time. And I think the big difference between us and the teams that do go on to be winners, that do go on to, to do something this season, are the teams who've got trenches. And we've got half of the trenches. Our offensive line looks a lot better now. I think Ossie Chapillo's put himself down as a serviceable left tackle going forward. Darnell Wright was okay last night. Obviously, Drew Dalman, Joe Tooney, and Jonah Jackson I thought were excellent second half. But the D-line is the one big weakness. There is not the strength in that D-line for me. And that is part of what is a big weakness of this team. And Ryan Poles, needs to use the upcoming off-season, once this season is done, wherever it ends up, to use whatever draft picks we get to strengthen this D-line, to look at possible trades, to go out and get some blue chip players for that D-line who can make a difference. You know, the big call has always been, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you've got to build the trenches first. And like I said, we've done the offensive line this past summer. Now the D-line needs to take some attention, because I think that group there, as you see them, are not up to the standard you need to become a real contender in this league. And look, I know we've moved forward hugely. This is a very good season. This has been a great season. And we don't want to get greedy. We don't want to get over ourselves. But these tweaks are what turns a good team into a great team. And for me, the D-line is kind of letting us down a little bit at this point in time. The defense also, I think, is shorn of talent at this moment in time. If you think about it, like I said last night, Jalen Johnson, I don't think he's fit. Kyler Gordon doesn't play. TJ Edwards, not fully fit. Noah Sewell, not fully fit. I said, Kyler Gordon is out. Tremaine Edmonds, still missing. And he's had a great season this season, Tremaine Edmonds. He's missing. Tyreek Stevenson, another one missing. And I know Tyreek started the season badly, and he did. But Tyreek has improved as the season's gone on. So for me, you take out 3 key pieces like that, it limits Dennis Allen's options. And I think this D, in terms of the linebacker group, in terms of the secondary, is looking a lot better. But it's the D-line, like I said. But, you've taken 3 key pieces out of your linebacker and secondary group, and you're weakening that group. And Jordan Love obviously exploited that last night. I think he did. I think, had we got Tremaine Edmonds, had we got Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, I think there's a few different moments in that second half when they're getting their touchdown drives. I don't think perhaps some of those happen. Perhaps some of those are turned into field goals rather than touchdowns. This team has made great progress. Don't get me wrong. It is heading in the right direction. And Ben Johnson has done an amazing job with the Bears. He has changed the culture. He's changed the way we play. And last night, like I said, it was close. The second half could have gone either way. I think the damage was done first half. Of course it was. But this team is moving in the right direction, and we shouldn't let that detract from what happened last night. There's 4 games to go, 4 wins, and we're in. Look, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. It is disappointing to lose to the Cheeseheads. No one's liked losing to the Cheeseheads. But, like I said, there are reasons, and I think mitigating reasons why we didn't obviously get that win last night. We'll have to put up with the banter. We'll have to put up with the slagging off, the Mickey taking from the Cheeseheads until we meet them again at Soldier Field in a couple of weeks' time, guys. Let's build up to that. Let's hope we can get a few more players back, a few more players fully fit, and maybe Dennis Allen can find a way for that D-line to become effective. Caleb does need work, like I said, but look, he's improving. I think second half he was better. And he did obviously have some fantastic throws second half. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on last night's game. Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. If you've enjoyed this content, please obviously do me a favour. If you can like, comment, share and subscribe, that would be absolutely phenomenal, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. And remember always, bear down.